Yep, that's me. Gonna be playing Assassin's Creed Black Flags Resynced early, and got some things to talk about when it comes to how could a remake make me discover some truths about myself that I didn't even know. And I used to make fun of people when they would overreact. And now I know what it's like. And I finally got humbled. Shout out to Ubisoft. By the way, they let me get the game early. I'll be streaming it before it even releases. So stay tuned for the announcement for that on the channel. Thank you so much for even letting me get extra footage and content. Appreciate Ubisoft so much. But the truth is, everybody watching, I've never even cared about Ubisoft. In the day when they first released Assassin's Creed, I just played the games I liked, and it happened to be a series that I adored more than anything. It was right up there in my all-time favorite series. And the truth is, I'm going to go down a rabbit hole that might help you heal and be excited for this game. But we're not doing breakdowns on the mechanics and features. I have that on the channel. This is a introspective experience for me. And just sharing my embarrassment, my humbleness, my excitement, my emotional reaction, and more that I didn't know I had for Assassin's Creed Black Flag. Now, before we get started, a couple of spoiler warnings. I will talk about the modern day and mainly the games leading up to Black Flag and Black Flag as well. And I'm going to talk about The Last of Us and mainly just one important thing that happens in The Last of Us Part 2. So buckle up, join me. This is going to be me pouring it all out. I want to give you the setting. It started with Assassin's Creed Part 1 when it first released. There was something magical that happened with that game. And very rarely has any movie or game, TV show captivated me the way Assassin's Creed did. Basically, they said, we're going to give you a sci-fi experience in the modern day that is so interesting, it's going to let you play open world games. And it's going to push you through these stories in different time periods with historical heroes and villains, and you get to relive all of that. It said you're going into a machine called the Animus, and you're going to continue to discover what happened in the past so that we can work on the future and save the world in some ways. This was my introduction to the series with the first game. Was a character named Desmond that I absolutely adored, and he was a prisoner, and they basically locked him up and used him because his DNA had ancestors that were a big part of history, and they're super powerful artifacts and things like that that you can use to control the world. And the assassins and the Templars were against each other, trying to make sure that whoever can have that power. You happen to be an assassin, and they happen to supposedly want to do the right thing. I mean, this is a complicated conversation about free will and your, controlling or protecting the world. And that's where the Templars wanted to control the world, while assassins were saying, no, anything's permitted. Nothing is true. Everything's permitted. So the beginning of that game and throughout the first game, I got so intrigued that I played through the story. Even if that kind of game wasn't for me, maybe I didn't like open worlds, maybe I didn't like a lot of it, which I did actually. But the main modern day story of discovering the truth and finding out futuristic sci-fi elements was why I played the game. And then part 2 came out. Part 2 did exactly the opposite of what part one did. It gave me a story in history for a character I love and adore. His name is Ezio, and he's probably the most likable character in the series. He ended up getting a trilogy. In that trilogy, go through his early years all the way up until the very end. And you love him and you love the history that they put you through. But the truth is, the modern day was still existing in that time. You got Ezio at his peak, as well as the modern day story continuing forward. And then, right before Black Flag release, Ubisoft did the unthinkable. They killed off Desmond. And at that moment, I was more intrigued than ever for the series because I couldn't imagine what else they can do. And I said to myself, this is insane. What can they do next? It's going to be incredible. Cannot wait to see what's going on. I had no anger, no negative feelings or thoughts. And then I played through Black Flag. And Black Flag is one of those games that has a really incredible story, amazing cutscenes. The universe is spectacular. You're in the pirate elements, everything about the game, as far as the history side, pretty damn cool for the most part. Of course, it had its flaws, which we'll talk about a little bit later. But overall, history was pretty amazing. And with all that said, as story started and introduced itself as it does for Assassin's Creed games, it took us as in the modern day, had us as a first-person character in an office working, trying to get into history. And it was pretty ridiculous and not at all interesting enough. At the time when I first played, I was like, okay, there's going to be some big reveals, and there were. And I'm not going to get into all those spoilers, but it really wasn't hitting, and it didn't really captivate what the other 5 games did for it. Stories continued, they evolved, and it just wasn't good for me. So that started my disdain, because I played through the whole thing and said, this Black Flag game has cool things like diving underwater, hitting sharks, and all this fun stuff, but damn, they missed the mark the modern day. They just killed off Desmond as well. And I want to pause to kind of take you through some feelings. And this is where the story starts to unfold. I didn't know how impactful that was to me. Seeing Joel and Ellie in part 1 of The Last of Us, and if you didn't play this game, it's amazing. Spoilers ahead. And then part 2 comes out, and Joel dies in the very beginning portions of the game, which was so impactful. People hated the studio. They were talking crazy, even death threats and wild things, killing off one of the main characters who we loved. And at the time, if you could go on my Twitter, I said, hey guys, you're overreacting. This is a part of the story. They meant to just through an impactful loss that would devastate us, but also propel the story in new, different ways rather than making part 18, right? Like all these series are turning into TV shows where they just like, the hero never dies. Everything's perfect. Don't worry. And it's always, hero's always good. Surviving. And in this game, The Last of Us, they killed them off, and it brutally at that. It was pretty hard to swallow. Even to this day, when I see it, I'm like, oh my gosh, tough. But that's what made the story even more compelling, more powerful in my opinion. And that's how I felt, and I kind of laughed at people who were overreacting. Rewind time. I played through more Black Flags, after this, Unity and Syndicate, Origins, Odyssey, Shadows recently. I just kept telling people every time I play these games, and I play them a lot, hey, Black Flag ain't even in my top 5. Black Flag ain't even in my top 5, man. Black And I just repeat it right now because I didn't know. I did not know what I was going through emotionally, mentally. The devastation of Devon's loss and the fact that they didn't really hit the mark for a new modern day story is a big part why I did not like Black Flag and kind of hated it. And still have feelings like that right now. The only difference is, I'm honest, all this stuff was very cool. My first time trying to catch a shark, it's a dream come true, kind of very cool thing. Just like, oh my God, I got the shark. It's just fun. And those little things like that are just things you can't recreate. It gave me this experience. And I remember like watching the Pirates of the Caribbean and really liking those universes. You know, it was something I never really was into heavily. Anytime I seen the movies and kind of just enjoyed everything. So this game just hit the mark. It was just special and it was a good time. And there's a lot of greatness in it. But I complained about more things than just the modern day. Started talking about how I hated the Taylor missions, which I did, but they weren't the end of the world. They just were a little repetitive and they didn't have any options or freedom in them. Then I talked about how the naval systems weren't as intuitive as they should have been, and how we spend 40% of the game on the ship and we're not even being assassins. As well as like some of the missions aren't exactly stealth option based. They don't give you extra opportunities like the Assassin's Creed games do at times. And you know, I just really was going on rants about this while playing this game, and I've actually always had this downloaded for the multiplayer that they have because the multiplayer is so cool. It's still on now. You can go in there and play a little bit with some people. Put on my PlayStation 5 and I just jump in and find a couple people playing. It's gonna be intense, so don't try it if you don't really want to deal with sweaty players who play it all the time. But it's an experience, and I've always had this game downloaded on every single system, PlayStation 4 or 5, because of that. But the truth is, I've also complained about these other issues. And never in my world did I imagine they'll do a remake for this game. I don't really support remakes for the most part. It wasn't until I played The Last of Us and Metal Gear Solid Snake Eater's remake where I said, whoa, this is next level. Okay, you shut me up. You shut me up. And more remakes are shutting me up because there's things that I just cannot stand in these games. Things that I feel like mechanically, the AI, or some type of feature just wasn't good, and people try to, oh, it's a great game. It's like, no, you're just ignoring the worst things about the game in order to compliment it. I'm not okay with that sometimes, especially when it's a series I love more than most. It's one thing if it's just a game I never heard of and I tried it out and you're, you know, oh, this is good. And it's like, yeah, that's pretty cool for an indie studio with 8 developers. Wow, this is impressive. But for me, Black Flag is the peak of financial growth that they had. And so them keeping the combat, for example, which was very bland, it started getting boring. Basically was wait, parry, and then attack. It was kind of that for a lot of the Assassin's Creed the originals. It started getting dull, and it's like, okay, you guys are releasing this every year. This is not turning into a new system. Same thing with the stealth. Without Unity and Syndicate, some of the stealth, and it's just like, you know, going through the motions. I don't think that's okay. Also don't think it's bad if a company, you know, is trying to give you consistent entertainment, if they want to do that. But they have to have good systems in order to do it. And that is where they failed plenty of times in the past, at least in my opinion. And the bigger thing that I want to kind of talk about and kind of put to the forefront here is they are 100% not playing no games. Like, this is next level improvements. And this is where what happened to me was Ubisoft, as you know, I have to keep my mouth shut a little bit here, but I get to do playtests and I get to do previews and, you know, just stuff that you guys know and I talk about on my videos. Can't talk about each of them, but I get to see games early, whether it's Assassin's Creed or whatever. And it's not just EA, it's, I mean, Ubisoft, it's EA, it's Sony, it's whoever kind enough to allow me to be a part of that process. And with this game, anything I saw in the last year, 2 years, whatever the case may be, has continued to rile up my heart and soul and say, why were you overreacting? Why were you so unacceptable of this game? Why were you consistently telling people it's not top 5? What's wrong with you? And I had to look within and come to my senses that this game definitely is gonna be peak. Still want to stand by, which I can't really do anymore, but stand by the fact that the modern day was trash, which the developers agree because they removed it. The stealth was not as intuitive as you're seeing here, where you're capable to crawl, you got all the great tools, you really can maneuver in different ways, even the parkour is improved. I mean, this is next level. They got the weather, dynamic weather. This is so improved from what I was complaining about. Even the tailing missions got fixed. And it's like, wow, like I should complain more. You know, maybe I should. But at the same time, I also realized you were overreacting. There was a great game underneath all of that. And I think a lot of times we do that. And I miss the modern day. And I'm not going to act like everything's cool because they bring back a cool game with a lot of cool new mechanics and systems. The modern day is still missing. And it's going to be missing until they do something. And I have some of the most incredible ideas on how to fix the modern day story. But can't do it in this video. So I'm going to just kind of recap my feelings. I'm so excited for this. I do have early access. I'm going to be playing it. I did not expect to even care for this game, to be honest with you. Out of all the games to remake, I was like, please no, don't remake this. And I was wrong. And it's okay to be wrong and admit it and say, I'm sorry to yourself. Say, hey man, do better next time. Overreacting. And that's where I'm at with it. Now I'm going to play it humbly. I'm going to be healing all those ignorant thoughts and feelings about this and enjoying this and then sharing it with you guys. So leave a like, subscribe, or comment if this was somewhat insightful to a gamer who might have been, I don't know, maybe immature, but is healing and growing and learning. And now you can be a part of that because I'm going to share way more before this game releases. That being said, I did want to dive into something that you guys might find very interesting on the next video about the modern day for Assassin's Creed. This is going to be somewhat of a pitch. Hope you guys enjoyed that. Go check it out now. Catch you later. God bless.